I think my biggest learning is that all of us are in it together, and all of us just need a little bit more empathy.
So much is happening in terms of consumption of content, attention spans, etc., etc. It's a whole different issue. But I think when each one of them also, each little piece of content puts in that effort to get your attention, films also need to do that. We have to have that responsibility. Otherwise, you will make a film for yourself great and nobody will watch it but you.
Stuff that comes out today, we can't relate to it sometimes, when you watch it as an audience also, because we as makers also are an audience for most of the day when we're sitting and we're watching something, and you feel that I don't know who these characters are or what this world is. And it's not like I don't want to know different characters and different worlds, but it's such an alien lens that it's you're not gone into the depths of it.
Hey everyone, my name is Parush, and in this episode of the Long Live Cinema Show, I got the chance to interact with Shaan Vyas and Annukampa Harsh, who have worked both individually and as co-creators in the industry for the very long time. They have taken charge of different responsibilities when it comes to being behind the camera and also in front of the camera. They have worked as producers, writers, directors, and even actors in a couple of projects. Their recent project, which was produced by them, was Fairy Folk, which received a limited theatrical release. Unfortunately, I could not go and watch that film because not a lot of shows were available here in Delhi NCR. But I hope that the film receives an OTT release very soon. One of their major projects includes Natkhat, which was a short film that competed for the Oscars as well. In this episode, I got the chance to pick their brains on what exactly is the job of a film producer, what are the different roles and responsibilities of a film producer. We also talked about how the kind of films or the kind of stories that are being told in India right now, they can change and we can actually transform the entire storytelling landscape in our country. Both the audience and the makers can come together and do this for our country. We also talked about a bunch of directors and films which have helped them to aspire to, tell stories and show it on the big screen. They also mentioned their process of working on different projects and how they navigated through all the deadlines and all the obstacles and all the creative blocks. It is a very informative podcast, and I had a great time talking to them, especially because I really loved their short film Nutcut. I also made a video analyzing the entire short film. It's out there on my channel. You should definitely give it a watch. And I'm so glad and I feel so fortunate that I got the chance to talk to both Shaan and Anukampa for this podcast, and hope you also have a great time watching this one. So without any further delay, sit back, relax, and let's start the show. Sit back, relax, and let's start the show. So, firstly, I would like to understand from you guys as a basic for someone who is watching this, just to understand from the basics, key what is the difference between an executive producer, a co-producer, producer. There is someone like a lead producer. So, can you help in segregating these different roles for someone who is trying to actually understand कि film production में जो producer है उसका काम क्या होता है वो सिर्फ because like you mentioned Anukampa in your post that unfortunately you don't remember any of the producers of your favorite films ever. So and the entire motive of me doing this series of podcasts is to reach out to people like you who are actually doing the hard work to make someone stand in front of the camera. Like I was just talking to Shaan and I told him कि एक actor को खड़ा करने के लिए उसके पीछे कितने लोग जा रहे हैं, and you are one of those people, right? So I want to start by this question that can you please help me understand and the audience and the viewers understand what are the different roles of film production of a film producer, the differences between executive, co-producer, producer, and if at all there is a lead producer.
Shan, you're the expert.
Okay. So, to simplify things, I'll divide the journey of a film into three three sections. Okay. The first section is where you are developing the film. When you say developing the film, it is not just script, but it's things like where is the money going to come from, who are the partners, etc., etc. Setting it up is what they say. That's the term everybody uses. So you set up the film, You take it to a studio, you take it to a financier, you take it to all the various collaborators that you're going to have on this project. This is before the shoot. This is even before the prep. This is before even casting. And casting becomes a big part of this development. So a big producer might have access to the cast. When I say big, I don't mean it in terms of talent, just mean it in terms of stature. And talent helps us, like above the line talent helps us to fund the film in a certain way. If you so producers are so the first stage is this setting it up. Okay, once it's set up, we go into pre-production, production, post-production, which is what actually makes the film. It is the process of finish, like starting and finishing the film, and all the nuts and bolts involved in that. That's where the true filmmaking comes in, right? And then the third stage is your release distribution and marketing, PR, and making sure the front facing part of the film, which is what actually people, that's all they see. The usual janta sees that. That's the work. That, that's the producer's work that actually gets seen, literally. A film with a higher budget and lots of innovative marketing gets seen more. And becomes more prevalent in people's heads. And as a result, they go to the theaters, etc. Now, so this first we've understood the three stages of a film. Now, if I was to tell you, these things are labels, okay? Co-producer, executive producer, etc. It all varies, different per film. It often depends on the volume of contribution that someone has, if you look at it very meritoriously, or it often just depends on the stature of the person. So there are no fixed roles as such in India, besides the very simple distinction that in India, an executive producer, technically, there is a difference between executive producers in India and executive producers in the West. In the West, if you see an executive producer credit, back in the day, it's all changed even now. It was typically somebody who got the money, right? So if it is a studio film, a studio would have a couple of their executives as executive producers. If it's financiers, they would get executive producers. In India, executive producer is what we call an EP. Uh, and everywhere they are called EPs, but specifically here, whenever you tell a filmy person he's the EP on a film, it typically means somebody who executes the project. Literally, he's the executor of the project. He's the person who hires everyone, sets the engine in motion, and he's the daddy of the film. Like he makes sure that the filmmaking part of it, so that central part of it, mostly it's taken care of by him. Okay, in a lot of cases, even the setting up and the release, they're responsible for. So, for example, some people come on board as EPs because they help to distribute the film. So they will need a credit on three. They will come on board as co-producers, so EPs, right? So, like I said, there is a fixed part to the EP credit, and then there is a fluid part to the EP credit as well. So that's what happens. Typically, the big legacy producers that we have and all the big producerial names that we have, not only are they instrumental in the central portion, which is the making of the film, but they're really influential in the setting it up and the release. And that's the part that indie producers have to play throughout. Like if you have a big film, that it's a little easier because some production houses deal with the studio and they set up a film as a part of that deal, etc., etc., and then they have distribution machinery going there, so they can also ensure a good release for the film. When it comes to independent films, often it's just one person doing all three things, right? So I hope that sort of clarifies it in whatever muddled way I could.
Yeah. Yes,
It
definitely.
comes here on mute.
There's also the line producer and the co-producer that perhaps you
Correct.
can speak about.
Sorry, I missed that. So within a lot of the actual production work happens prep with photography and post, which is where the line producer, the production managers, co-producers often they all come into existence. In fact, co-producers maybe not necessarily so because they are also often like I was a co-producer on a film called Haram Khor, where I was not a part of the shoot, but became a part of the entire post and release part, right? So co-producer is also a little fluid, but the line producer is somebody who
Yeah.
reports to the EP and executes it on the ground. Typically, a line producer's job actually ends typically, so this can vary. It actually ends at the end of shoot, post which a post producer takes over that job. Okay, but they both report directly to the EP. So that's the kind of hierarchy.
And I guess the line producer will be the one coordinating the locations,
Correct,
making sure that your featured cast and everyone is like there on the day of the shoot, and whom are you coordinating
correct.
with, and
All the
all of that.
vendors' locations, all the principal parties, and all the HODs, vendors' locations, ADs, assistants, etc. They all are hired and hired by the line producer, and his job is almost akin to a first AD in a way. First AD runs the shoot, creative parts of the shoot. The line producer has to run everything else. Right? So they have to work in tandem in its own way. So if a shoot is because I mean it's such a process, right? Like there is a script, you have a script which is a blueprint for everything that goes on. Now you've got to break it down, and then there is day one of shoot in which some parts of the script are going to be there, and there is actually two big teams involved. One is the production, one is the direction. Their job is basically to execute two different parts of this day. So there are days met. As a result of the day being met, you have coverage, you have footage, and that's how, like, with those building blocks, you make a film. So, in its
Then you
smallest
also
unit,
have the
sorry,
creative producers in a lot of companies and studios.
all
Uh,
fluid.
yeah,
So
yeah.
often, actually, right now, what has happened is creative producers are typically people employed either by the big producing companies to oversee production on a shoot in the just the creative elements to ensure that the vision of the show or the film remains intact. For example, a director comes with a beautiful script, takes it to a production house, either it's a film or a show, and production house loves it, says, "We want to execute this. We will put a team together to execute this." They'll hire a team. They'll put an EP on it. They'll probably put a creative producer on it. Some places they might not put a creative producer as a producer and so on like that. And the creative producers basically, so the role division would be EP will handle production, while the creative producer would be ensuring that whatever's on the script remains intact. The vision that they had bought into, the production company had bought into, remains intact, and also contributes a lot creative. Nowadays, the creative producers are also they contribute a lot creatively to enhance the making of the film because there's just directors and when you're making a film, it's always so good when new perspectives come into the film of people that who were not a part of it when you originally thought of it, etc., etc. And so, yeah, a lot of times in shows, especially, there are multiple directors, right? Like for episodes. So a creative producer always has balance that the overall vision is the same. This is also what a showrunner does, but yeah, like I said, it's all fluid. You ask any creative producer what they do, they might give you a whole different sort of explanation for what
Actually, with a lot of the credits that you get in films, I'm not sure how it works in the West, but specifically in India, because that's what we are observing, you will realize that unless and until you investigate and really ask questions about different people's roles, you will not exactly know just by the credit, because somebody who is a producer on A film could have had a very different involvement from somebody who's a producer on B film. And this is not to say that the role of a producer gets diluted, but there are also some token names. For example, if I have a big company and now the company is co owned by some family members, and there's a mother and a sister or a wife or a brother or whatever, and they may have had zero involvement in the film, but their names will appear as a producer because it's so and so production company. So you will see those different slates appear. Similarly, there could be a talent or a person who's attached themselves as presenters. So they came like completely last once the film or the project got completed, and now they will be using their name to bring that project into the market. and get eyeballs from the audience or from a platform or whatever it is. And then as presenters they become producers. They're the last to join the journey, but because they'll be bringing the film to the world, they also do get that credit. And then there are also, in some very rare cases, somebody who might have taken a huge cut on their fee. Someone who's not really, they might have a big market rate, and they have not gotten paid when the film was getting made. The budget may not have been capable to get them into the project, so they get a producer credit, and they might also have a back end in it. So which means that sometimes there are big stars, and you take them on a project, and there's this concept of territories, right, when you're distributing a film. And then that that territory belongs to them, so whatever money gets recovered from there, then it goes to them. So they're the producers, but they're producers because they didn't take money, and in that way they did fund the film. In that way they were contributing to the
Right.
budget of the film.
So, Anukampa, I would love to understand from you that, as Shaan was mentioning, that during this process, there is a moment when the casting director comes into play. So, since you have had vast experience of working as a casting director, so how would you define the role of a casting director in truly understanding and making sure that the ultimate vision of the project gets fulfilled by bringing the correct talent? So, how do you get into that process? What is like? Do you have something that इज़ लाइक अ मोडस ऑपरेंडी कि यार मुझे इस तरह से काम करना है, सो दैट जो हमारी फ़िल्म है उसके लिए हम सही किरदार चुन पाएँ जो लोग उनको निभा पाएँ?
So I think for me the most joyful experiences of casting have been with my director has had a lot of clarity. And my director gives me absolute clarity as to what kind of, how are they envisioning these characters and what kind of actors do they want. Then then I know that okay, fine, I'm being guided by a vision and now I understand it. If a director only doesn't know who they want and what they, it of course it can be fun if the director gives you complete freedom and say jisko cast karna hai kar lo, give me options, and I'll choose from there. But sometimes it is not about the freedom. It is often about the fact that the director or the filmmaker himself or herself may not know exactly what they want. That can become that then becomes like a hit and miss process where you are thinking of something, and unless and until you give the director options, you will never know whether it fits their the world that they are imagining or not. But as far as my process is concerned, I have a very instinctual process, and B, I have had a very, very long experience as an actress, which means that I have given n number of auditions. I have lost count on the number of auditions that I've given. And I know which audition processes I've enjoyed, which casting directors have been like a joy to work with as an actor. Where did I feel disrespected and what could have been corrected in the system? And those learnings are what I have taken into the casting process to make sure that the whatever I have experienced, whatever I have liked can get replicated, and whatever I have not liked can get fixed. And somewhere in all of that, the combination of all of that is what has given me the ability in the few projects that I have cast to get the right talent in.
Yes. Okay.
If you want examples, then I can actually give you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
examples
It
of
would be
both the
great.
things.
Yes.
Like for example, instinctual casting. Of course, the most famous one is Sonu and Natkhat. That's Sanika, because we had imagined that casting for Sonu will be a very very long process. We thought we'll go to a lot of schools. We'll go to wherever there are kids. We'll just keep auditioning children till we find the right kid. Because for Shaan, it was very important to find a child who can play that naughty kid while not being rough with the co-actors, while not being like you can get a very very naughty child, and the naughty child can be out of control and actually hurt the girls that he's in a scene with. So he was very concerned about finding that right child, and we had mentally prepared ourselves that however long it takes, 2 महीने जाए या कितना भी जाए, we will keep finding Sonu. But we didn't audition for Sonu a single day, because I happened to be scrolling Instagram and I came across a video of Sanika reciting a poem. and it was not even on her profile, it was on Mr. Anupam Kher's profile, and he didn't know who the child was. He said, this is some child I have come across and God bless this child. Then I checked the comment section, and in the comment section somebody had tagged her and said, this is my niece. I contacted that person, and within an hour I think I had told Shan that we have found Sonu, and I was on a phone call with her parents. So it was literally like, okay, this is a film that we are making, like roughly this is what our idea is, and we need your child to play a boy, is that okay? So everything just got locked within, I guess, within 2 hours. And we had always also convinced Sanaya, our wonderful producer from RSVP, for this. This was an instinctual casting. Another example of instinctual casting was when I was doing this, the India leg casting for this American production called India Sweets and Spices by Geeta Malik, and they wanted the lead happened to be like amongst the three people, Manisha Koirala, and they wanted a younger version of Manisha. And I had her pictures with me, and all the other actors are circulating amongst people. I was going to schools and colleges, like randomly parking my car and going to security guards outside colleges and saying, "आपके यहाँ पे ऐसा कोई student है जो ऐसा दिखता है? Any girl?" Or there were also Adil Hussain. So do you have a boy who looks like this? And कोई भी हो तो मुझे बताना. Like I was going to Prithvi, I was going everywhere. And then I happened to be walking from somewhere. I was on the phone somewhere around Aramnagar, coming towards home, like randomly. And then I saw one girl who was walking on the road, and she was also on the phone. And I just felt like Manisha. Like I just got this instinct, and I ran towards her. I didn't even know she's an actress, or what does she do. Of course, a lot of people in Bombay look like they're models and actors. And I stopped her. I asked her name. This wonderful girl called Swati, and took her number. And she was also a little like shocked because she's on a phone call and somebody's saying, hey, can I get your number? I'm casting for something. And I took her number, and I think she's the only person we auditioned, sent the test to Geeta Malik, and then she was cast as young Manisha. Again, it was just, an
Right.
instinctual thing. And as far as the other correcting the mistakes are concerned, I think over there, and I speak on behalf of the acting community, there has been a long-standing complaint that actors have had where the casting team will hound them for auditions and hound them to come for auditions when they are casting. But afterwards, even after they have been shortlisted and after everything has happened and all the work has happened, they never come to know if they have been selected or not. They don't even get a message back to say that, now you might have been shortlisted and your dates might have been blocked, but you'll not even get a courtesy call to say that you can release your dates. And a lot of that has improved now. There's some wonderful, wonderful casting companies like Casting Bay, wonderful work happening with Mukesh Chabra, and many, many companies that I can go on and on about. And I can see that the team that is working over there, because they're actors, they're very sensitive to it. You'll get a message saying, release your date, please. But this was not a norm a few years ago. And the one thing that I have always made a point is, someone has auditioned with me, they should know that please, you can move on, because an actor just waits. They wait for that phone call to come after having given an audition, especially if
Right.
it's a good audition. And letting them also know that don't take it personally. This might have been some completely like different reason for why someone has been quote unquote rejected. I think just the empathy with which you can handle somebody during this process, it just makes the so-called rejection way softer and give them a little like confidence to move on
Right.
to the next
Absolutely.
audition.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, Camps is not telling you about the drama. She's made it very like simple, but she's not told you about the drama of how we cast Natkhat. So it was one of the. So just to add a little bit of it to that, is that my apprehension was also the fact that you've seen the film. So whatever we're going to teach the child, it's also a responsibility to make the child unlearn everything. Correct? Because we're going to make him do some ghastly things in the film, and it's a 7-year-old. That's what the mandate was. So 7-year-old child, any it's a responsibility. It's not just that a lot of you just have to. If it is an adult, it's fine. They know how to get out of that character, etc., etc. So those were my apprehensions. I was also a first-time filmmaker. So, and when she showed me Stanika, I said, "Listen, uh, this has solved so many problems for me because the first thing is she showed me a clip of her reciting a poetry, like a long Shuno Draupadi Shastro Dhalo, like the full thing, right? And I'm like, firstly, she can remember lines. So that's a huge thing uh, that directors love for some reason. And the second thing is that she's a girl. So now I don't have to worry about, like, I have to approach her very differently because she's a girl. Now, it's not about teaching a boy bad things that boys do, but it's telling a girl about imagining the bad things that boys do to her and her friends, right? It became that actually cracked it. Like it was not just a casting coup, it was a casting miracle. So yeah, that's the drama. Not
Yeah,
drama.
and the
That's
children were sorry, and the children were actually told about the whatever you see in Natkhat. They were just told about. They were taught about everything through bullying. They were never obviously told exactly what it is that we are trying to thematically represent in the film, because they are kids. So the way we spoke to them is, यू हैव सीन बुलीज राइट, आपको पता है ना बच्चे कैसे होते हैं, बदतमीजी करते हैं, वो करते हैं, हाँ मैम, हाँ सर मेरे क्लास में वो, हाँ. सो उनको सिखाना है कि बुली नहीं करना चाहिए, उनको सिखाना है कि ऐसे बात नहीं करते, उनको सिखाना है कि ऐसे पुश नहीं करते हैं. सो दे वर बेसिकली ऑन दिस प्रोटेस्ट मार्च अगेंस्ट द बुलीज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. दैट्स व्हाट द किड्स वर वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स.
Yeah, in fact, I was actually about to ask you guys later in the conversation that how do you, when you are catering to such a sensitive subject, how do you actually explain those complexities and the importance of playing a role that is, going to drive the story in so many ways to such to someone who's so young. So, and that's exactly what you've just mentioned. So, because this is the very first thought that I had after watching Natkhat, ki how do you मेक अ चाइल्ड आर्टिस्ट अंडरस्टैंड कि जो यहाँ पे हो रहा है उसका एक बहुत ही अलग डीप मीनिंग है एक बहुत ही बड़े पर्सपेक्टिव में. So yeah, that is something that I think you have already you've just mentioned. And yes,
camps. You should tell them about our
yeah, yeah.
process with the kids.
So, uh, personally speaking, I have a lot of faith in children and their understanding of life. And I think the reason I'm able to have this faith is because that faith was put in me when I was growing up by my mother. She did not treat me. I mean, of course, I was a child to her. I think I'm still a kid to her. That is forever there with parents. But I'm when I was growing up, she always respected me as an adult in a child's body, like somebody who has the maturity to understand things. If you have the ability to hold the conversation with the child, most of us what we do ना कि बच्चे हैं तो बात नहीं करनी है, तुमसे तुम्हारा सुनना नहीं, so we don't even know about the great ideas they might be holding in their heads. Of all you know, they are also observing things and they have formed a lot of notions and stories and maybe even solutions for the problems that they're seeing around themselves. They are feeling things, but we play with kids, we talk to them about silly things, but we don't have mature conversations with them. And that happened a lot with me while growing up. So for example, there was no censorship in our house while watching films. So it was just me and mum in the house. My mother as a single parent and me as an only child, and she would, as she does even now, and is as happens in our house, watch a lot of cinema all the time. बट यू नो हाउ वी टेंड टू डू कि अच्छा वायलेंट सीन आ गया, आंख बंद कर लो या रूम से जाओ, और कुछ आ गया, शी वुड बी लाइक यू आर वाचिंग द न्यूज विद मी. You're going out there in school. I do not know what all you are seeing and what all you are witnessing. I mean, you cannot control when a child is in a school bus and suddenly there's an accident in front of you. You're not there to control your child and say, "Aankh band kar lo, kaan band kar lo." There's so much that the child is getting exposed to constantly. I'll rather do it, have her see things under my supervision where she can ask me questions if at all. And what happens with kids now, if you let them be, half the time they're not interested. So if there's a very serious film going on or something, and it's because a mother has not told me to leave the room, or all you know, if the film has not caught my attention, if it's not something that I'm captivated by, I might be playing, I might have fallen asleep. But the minute you say that this is not for you to know, then the curiosity gets raised even more, and then the sources from which you get your information could be wrong, and the way you will learn about things are wrong. So even the first time a sex joke was cracked in my class, I came and told my mom ki this one joke was, one boy said this joke and everyone laughed, and what's so funny, I didn't understand because I didn't know the meaning of sex. So first time she heard it, she found it very amusing. And it was like she thought, okay, she's in fifth standard, and there was this very funny Parsi boy in our class. He used to always crack jokes all the time. It was a very non-controversial joke. Like it was not. And she thought, okay, fine, let it be. But then I was in the seventh standard, and I came back with another joke, and she's like, okay, now I think she needs to know, and she taught me in a very sensitive and sensible manner. So I never needed to turn to friends to, khusupusur and learn like what is it, or seek porn, or like it was just taught to me in the most wonderful, mature manner. So I think I have realized that even if kids have questions, you give them age appropriate answers, but you talk to them with this entire thing that they have the ability to understand things because they're anyway observing life. They are not born with blinders, and they are seeing things, and the conversations they might be having amongst themselves you may not even know about. Like there was this very naughty kid that from this village, Gogia, they used to call him, I'll not tell you what they used to call him, his name, I forget his actual name. But one day, when we were workshopping, he used to sit very quietly. And one day, when I was outside, and by the time I came back, the kids were like, "Ma'am, ये माँ की बोल रहा है बहन की गालियाँ." And he was like this tiny little thing, like I don't think it was more than 6, and choto in height, and everybody was like, and imagine if we think that बच्चों को तो कुछ पता ही नहीं है, but amongst themselves you have no idea. So not to say that of course we did not speak to them about sexual violence, we did not speak to them about physical abuse, we were not doing any of that, but we did try to generate a conversation by saying, what do you think is wrong, what do you think is wrong amongst kids, what makes you angry, how do you feel somebody gets bullied, does a boy hit a girl, like those kind of conversations. And before we spoke to the children, we spoke to the parents, we sought their permission to workshop with the kids, and we told them exactly what theme we are making a film on, so they know exactly what we are doing. And then we entered the workshop with the children. And like this one child, Nirav, again beautiful boy, he's the one who plays Biru and puts the plaits of the girls in. So we had asked him कि तुम्हें किस चीज से गुस्सा आता है. And he said मुझे दो चीज से गुस्सा आता है. So एक तो कोई मुझे अगर झूठा बोल दे, क्योंकि मैं हमेशा सच बोलता हूँ, कोई मुझे झूठा बोल देना मैम मुझे बहुत गुस्सा आता है. So okay. And then he said, sir, he had a very cute, he has a very cute छोटू brother. He must have become big now. At that time he was like very cute and adorable छोटू सा. He said, कोई मेरे भाई को कुछ कर देना है, मुझे बहुत गुस्सा आता है, मेरे भाई को कुछ कर. So we know that okay, this is the kind of stuff that makes the child angry. So if we want to elicit a reaction of anger from him, when the girl Reshma, which was played wonderfully by Vanshika, slaps him in that scene and takes the stone, and he has to be very very angry. What we need to tell him is, तुमको गुस्सा इसलिए आ रहा है क्योंकि तुमको झूठा बोला गया है, तुमको गुस्सा इसलिए आ रहा है क्योंकि शायद वो तुम्हारे भाई को कुछ करने जा रही है. अच्छा मैम. So then so the kids were also tapping into their own like personal experiences in a scene. This was not an anger because a girl has hit me. This is an anger because somebody could have told something to my brother, and that makes me very angry. And that was the process. We treated them like mature professional actors, even though they had zero experience of acting or film. They didn't know anything about. They had never seen a film shoot before. But we treated them like exactly like how would you workshop with professional adult actors. We would tap into the process exactly like that. In fact, Shaan, I think, had a very interesting time with the teenage boys who didn't quite understand. Like a few of them didn't quite understand that first scene wala ki what they are planning. Even though they were like big boys, one of them was completely clueless, and you had to sit with them and have a long chat, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember what I told them. I'm sure I didn't tell them what it was about. Some of them got it, but this one was, I think, 13. So he kept trying to ask, and I gave him an age appropriate answer. And I wish I remembered what I told him, but I didn't. Uh, I think he eventually got it. Uh, yeah.
His
What?
friends
What?
must have told him, that group.
Yeah, that's what I think. That's how he must have figured. But also, I want to add one more thing. What Camps used to do after she had a ritual uh, among the kids, right? So we had taught them this drill, rather, that after every take, and this happened in the workshops as well. So we sort of carried it forward to the shoot. That in the workshops, there was a lot of jostling and all of that, like in some scenes, right? And we had to just get that right. So we had put mattresses on the ground, made the kids like, and kids love falling on mattresses, like for whatever reason. It's a very fun thing to do when you're a child, right? So while they were doing all that, we were scared that they would get hurt and all this. So she had this ritual where after every take, they would do a group hug with her. So she was in the center and all the kids were around. And what would they say? Can you just please say it?
So we would hug each other into a circle, like a proper huddle, like how you do in sports and everything, and put our heads down, and then we would say, uh, "Sorry अगर लग गई, thank you साथ में प्यार से काम करने के लिए." And so we would just make sure that everyone has apologized for anything and also thanked each other for the support they're giving. And this would happen every day. So after every scene workshop, maybe twice or thrice a day, every scene that got shot. And the forest scene, which a lot of people find very, very uncomfortable to watch, the jungle scene, I think the kids had the most fun. Like literally, it was a day where they were not able to understand, first of all, takes, that there are POVs and then there are, shots that have to be taken from, like, so they thought ki take mil gaya, a good take acha ho gaya, and it was 46 degrees, we had hand fans and everything, but it's not like it was somewhere on a hilltop in the middle of a forest. We didn't have vanities and all over there. We what is it called? Island, no, something, there's a word
Like
for the
a uh,
like
like a
wherever.
canopy.
Yeah, they had all of that, but that was the only cooling mechanism to come under some shade and all, and hold the hand fans. And these kids would get those their juice boxes, whatever they wanted, and everything, and they're like, हाँ हो गया now, तो like हो गया now, like नहीं नहीं नहीं, अब उसका close up लेना है, तो वापस से सब कुछ करना पड़ेगा. And they were not like completely, sure, like why are we doing. So then Shaan began this process of telling ki come and watch yourself. So then they showed one child कि तुम्हारा close-up देखो ऐसा हुआ है, like हाँ अच्छा, तो the other अभी तुम्हारा होगा. So then the other child, अच्छा 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 अब मेरा होगा. So then it became like a group activity, and after every take then they would want to come and look at the monitor and see, अच्छा अब दिखा हमारा कैसा हुआ. So we
It
had
was a
to.
very Lagan ki team kind of thing.
Yeah, but it was, they actually, it'll be, if we watch the BTS of that entire shoot, you'll see that they were having just loads of fun through the entire thing, that generally the audience finds
Yeah,
very
yeah,
traumatic to watch, which
absolutely.
is
To
what the
me,
purpose.
like personally, for me, the scariest scene is that jungle scene. I get scared when I watch that, and I think that's exactly what you guys were intending to, because it is what the scene should actually elicit. And uh, another reason why I know I'm dragging a lot towards Natkhat, but just this last thing, that I really like that film also because I watched it when I was 27. 27 is an age when a lot of my friends were getting married. Uh, I don't know for what reason, but still, some of them were getting married, and they did had to, they were also, we use, आज के टाइम पे हम बातें ऐसी करते हैं कि यार हमारे टाइम पे तो हम बड़े सीधे होते थे, आजकल के बच्चे तो ये हो गए वो हो गए, एंड देन व्हेन यू सी a film like this, you get, you kind of get that feeling ki wait, when I have a kid, and if at all I wish to have a kid, then you know I don't know what to say, but this film just left me, uh, for the lack of better word, in a state of shock, because I was having these kind of conversations with my friends about, getting married and settling down and kids and all that. So that is there. But now Shaan, I would love for you to take us down the memory lane and talk about Shay. How did you like bring it all together with Karan, who has directed and written the film? Because that film has like a completely different atmosphere. It's a very different treatment altogether. And I haven't finished watching it, I'll be very honest, but I want to understand how did you guys ended up achieving it. And it is also a special film for me because I am a fan of Rasika Duggal, and for me, watching her is like in Share, it's like a very I'm watching a very younger version of Rasika Duggal, कि मैंने उनको बहुत टाइम बाद देखा है शायद फिल्मों में, बट नहीं, there is this one film where she, you know, it looks like okay, this is where she began her journey. So I would love to know how that film came together, and yeah, everything.
Actually, I, even though I'm credited as a producer on the film, I possibly have not put in the amount of work that the other two major partners on the film have, which is Karan and Abhinay, who actually started the film without me being a producer, without the producer in that sense. So that film was made with a two-person crew, just a director and a DP, working with an actor, sometimes two actors, sometimes just one actor. A large part of it is set inside a house. It was actually literally made with them. We had a friend who had bought a camera and he just loaned it to us for the film. And it's so many years back right now, so I can't recall like real specifics. But the way the film was put together was uh, just by contributions from like small contributions from people that we went out to raise the money. Pretty much it was Karan that did that initial work. I also started by actually just he was a friend of mine. We used to live in the same we flatmates around that time. So I was working a job somewhere, and my friend is making a film, and I was involved in music. I used to manage Karan and other artists as part of this collective of artists that we had formed when we were very young. So it is a natural extension of that. And uh, initially, I was not really the producer on the film. Producer वाला काम तो कुछ नहीं किया. I was not going on set. It was mostly them managing it. Yeah, I put some money in the start, some PF money that I got from my job. I put that, etc. So it started off as these small contributions. The thing is, the film took a good 3-4 years to make, right? Because they not just made the film, they used to make it on weekends, and then they used to edit it. Karan edited the entire film, then he did the sound, then he did the music. There was a lot of post work which Abhinay used to do, the DOP that he used to. So it took a good 2 years of post production, right? Possibly more. Like I said, I don't know specifics. And by the by that time, I actually got involved in like the last year of the film, where when it was almost ready, and you know, creative people are not necessarily the best people to represent your film, then you have to sell it in that sense. Not just for anything else, it's also because they probably you're busy making the film. We don't really know many people. So actually, I remember taking up a job right 1 year before the film was going to get ready, taking up a job in film. That's how I entered the film business. But it was a futile job because I thought that I was getting in the film business, but actually I was getting in the advertising and branding business. For whatever it's worth, I was just naive. I got a job which was doing in-film placements and branding and stuff like that. So I thought मुझे इससे access मिलेगा फिल्म रिलीज करने के लिए. कुछ नहीं मिला. 8 महीने काम किया, अच्छा काम किया, लेकिन I realized that now this job is not going to get me anywhere. So I quit that job. And then I just self learned how to sell a film. So just indie wires, like all these resources that you find, how are other filmmakers doing, how are other films doing it, etc. We figured out the festival circuit all by ourselves, just by the resources available online, experiences of other filmmakers, this and that. And then just cold calls basically to all festivals, all distributors. मैं बैठ बैठ के ईमेल लिखता था सबको. एंड हम लोग ऐसा तभी तो हम डीवीडीज भेजते थे. Festival submissions was expensive at that time because now it is screeners that you send. Back in the day, there was DVDs to be couriered, at least in the start, and the entry fee that you have to pay. So Suddenly there had to be money raised for that as well. What a 20, 30, 50,000. Uh, and then the FedEx का हमेशा track करो कहीं तो और चले गए ये वो that all that तामझाम was there. All today's filmmakers don't have that. Also, there is first we used to do that, then we figured that India has representatives for films. So Uma Dukuna used to watch films and sort of program them for various film festivals. Deepti Dakuna was there, Meenakshi Shetty was there. So in the first year जब किया ना वो भी रफ कट पे किया था तो कुछ नहीं पता था तो हमने सिर्फ भेजा पैसा वैसा खर्चा किया सेकंड by the time we started doing like figuring it out, then we went to these resources that we had. We showed it to Uma. She's actually the one who programmed it for Chicago. It's where it had its world premiere. Uh, and subsequently, uh, like showed it to programmers, etc. In that process of trying to sell the film, I also discovered film markets and Film Bazaar and Mumbai Film Mart and all these things that were happening around that time. And that really opened up doors for me, right? It opened up doors because now people saw a young producer who has a film ready, almost ready to be out there. So लोग बात करते थे like and if it's much better to have a project and go to talk to people than not having a project. Talk to them, you have something finished to show. So in that sense, the film really helped me get a footing uh, to the industry, and I really helped the film by actually being instrumental in its release and its festival runs, all of that, all of the post things that happen after
Right.
post production. That
So, I think he's not telling the entire story very properly about there's a for example, there's a reason Guneet Monga is Guneet Monga. When she attaches herself with a film, she will do everything in her might to make sure that the film is crossing the Indian borders and going into
Right.
the international shores and whatever it takes in terms of calls and emails and persuasion. If she's won an Oscar today, it means that campaigning is not simply about putting up posters or telling people, hey, for your consideration. It actually means that you reach out to people and convince them to watch your film. It's not about voting for your film, but it's about getting people to watch it in the first place. So I know from Shaan's experience, and because I was tapping into it a lot and asking about it, whether it meant, reaching out to people in the film fraternity and literally picking up the phone and saying, please come and watch, share. Like, your one tweet can be very important to us. You just saying one little thing can be very important to us. Making sure those people actually came and then they said whatever they could if they liked the film. Uh, Having the right words, because see, if I say nice things about Natkhat, I have made Natkhat. But if I say very nice things about Fairy Folk, it's Karan's film. So when I write an email and I send an email to any film festival, I'm writing about the passion of this filmmaker and how he has made this film and the team that's come together with, generosity and involvement. And those words that I'm pouring in, it's not about my work. I'm trying to glorify my team and make sure that the attention is drawn to the film. And Shaan has done that a lot with eventually a lot of projects, but it began with Share. And there's a very, very interesting story about, I think, the Chicago premiere and how you got to
yeah,
meet
so that
his.
is like a crowning glory
Yeah.
moment where actually what happened is we premiered at Chicago and we wanted to make that premiere very special. So, so Karan's composed the music for the film as well, right? And I basically, what we decided to do is let's try and get a quartet to play uh, as the audience enters into the premiere. We were in our twenties and we were like, let's make like we had these wild ideas. So actually, he sort of transcribed the score out and gave it to me, and I reached out to every music school in Chicago to ask to, and they're like Columbia Music School, like major music schools, to ask their students to actually perform at the Chicago International Film Festival a score for our film. And it was just so funny that actually Columbia Music School agreed, and they sent for like they gave us their in-house quartet of students, and this wonderful bunch of kids who just actually played four tracks of the background score of the film as the audience was entering. And the festival was very kind to let us do that. And it made it really special for all of us. And it made it
Of
special for
course.
the audience as well. It was a packed premiere, and everybody really loved that.
And
Uh,
you also do things like, he had shared that you're in Chicago and there are multiple films playing and there are multiple like audience members, but you keep going to them and say, please come for our film. Have you heard of Cher?
Hey, we had
We've got
made T-shirts and all that. So there's a rock in the film. Remember? It's in the
Yes.
start of the first scene of the
Yep.
film. She gets hit by a rock. That rock
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
triangular in shape, right? So we made a T-shirt with triangular, like a triangular rock, and it said "share." There's a QR code in the back. My dad wears that T-shirt right now. But when we used to walk on the streets of Chicago with that, there was some guy who thought, "Is this a pizza store? Like, is this an ad for a pizza shop?" Like, uh, yeah, we did everything. We had flyers, and our baggage was excess because we had flyers in there, which were just these A4 size flyers that we made and got printed at one shop in Andheri, and we were just carrying it and just going out to people and just distributing flyers to our film. And actually, like out of capacity of 120, we managed to fill it. Maybe 10 odd people would have come because we gave flyers, we gave something. 10, 20 people must have come for that. But that is the amount of work it took to get those 20 people. We realize how difficult it is because it's not just about uh, it's just about so much choice present to people, especially when they're at a film festival, to have that. But they probably just saw something in us, these Indian boys coming and giving us flyers randomly on the road and just going and doing it. So yeah, it was a very bootstrapping kind of journey that we had with that, and it really set the tone for uh, number one, knowing what to expect and from the business, and just also knowing that when you make something out of passion, there's a certain feeling that comes out of it when it actually works. When people say good things about it. When you hound somebody to watch the film, and that person, after months and months of hounding, watches it and actually likes it, it's not just that they like the film. There is a certain respect that they have for you as well. These are things I learned as I was in my 20s, and uh, that actually really helped. And through that, I actually met Guneet, through which I became a part of Anurag Kashyap Films initially, which was Sikya, and did so many prestigious projects right after that. I think she probably just saw uh, my work while I was trying to promote Share, so, which is what maybe impressed her.
Great. So,
Yeah.
how would you both like to summarize your experiences of, writing, directing, producing? You guys have done everything. Let's just say that you guys have done everything that goes behind taking a film to, in front of the audience. So, how would you summarize your experience by, the biggest learnings that you've had in your journey so far?
You know how bad I'm at summarizing, right? That's why I can't summarize.
Uh, I think in every role that I have been in and continue to be in, it's just that, of course, at one point in time, you're focusing on one thing, so the other thing might take a back seat. But when you're an actor, you're sitting and bitching about producers. Okay, when you are casting, you might have a problem with the dialogues. Now when you are writing, suddenly you have a problem with the feedback mechanism. When you're a producer, you have a problem with the entire system. And I think my biggest learning is that all of us are in it together, and all of us just need a little bit more empathy and need to understand each other's roles a little better. And if you're an actor, you need to understand the producer too is under a lot of pressure, just like you are dealing with things. If you are a casting director, and you might have a problem with actors behaving in a certain way and being incessantly they're calling or messaging, but they're also dealing with competition and desperation and insecurity. There is a way to handle it, and draw boundaries and perhaps express each other's needs to each other so that they are met in a more empathetic manner. I think I'm speaking not so much about the filmmaking process right now, but about the people within the process, for the simple reason that cinema is an art form that requires a collection of people. This is not an art form where I can sit alone and do something, or I can sit with just two people and do something, unless and until I'm shooting a monologue. This is something that requires a lot of people, and even if you make a film in isolation, then it requires a lot of people to make sure that there are people coming and watching what you're making, because none of us are making it to watch it on our own. And because it requires a collective, that collective needs to really function as a smooth machinery and understand each other better. And I think the minute this empathy will arise, that all of us in whatever jobs that we are doing, we are all dealing with our own independent challenges, and perhaps we can express it more openly so that the understanding can grow. I feel the filmmaking process by itself will become smoother. And maybe once in a while, a producer should try acting, an actor should try producing, a director should try casting. There should be like once in a while, like take up a project and do a little freelancing here and there to see exactly what the other people are dealing with.
Yeah, I think just to add to, I think she said it perfectly well. I think it's this collaborative mode of this medium is actually where it's all at. That's where the magic happens. That's where the best things get made. But most importantly, I feel that it's important for all storytellers to understand that it's actually quite a privilege to be able to tell stories in a world where you're just like 1% of the world who are actually telling stories in such a intricate form like cinema. uh, and walk into and so is the next person. So that next person is a part of that journey with you, and he's also there with that for that same passion. And that's actually what unites everyone when they're making a film. And even if you can't see that, I hope people get to see that. Like we all एक ही पिक्चर बना रहे हैं और एक ही पिक्चर बनानी चाहिए. बहुत टाइम ऐसे भी होता है जहाँ पे लोग अलग अलग पिक्चरें बना रहे हैं. तो it's if I was to this is not probably a summary, but if I was to just tell you my ideal form of working, it's when there is so much sync that it's just so much sync amongst the crew. And some of the best films get made like that, honestly. Like some of the films that get backed so unconditionally, like the Lunchbox. We had 9 producers from all over the world. It was not easy dealing with 9 producers, but they were united on a scene. You know what I mean? Like they all were like, okay, whatever it is, we still all back this monster that we have. दिस इज आवर विनिंग हॉर्स, इस पे हम पैसे लगाएंगे. तो ये बहुत ब्यूटीफुल चीज होती है फिल्मों के बारे में, जहाँ पे एक बार सेटअप हो गया तो जब होता है वो तब बहुत ब्यूटीफुल होता है. ऐसे बहुत सारी फिल्में जहाँ नहीं भी होता, सब अपने अपनी.
Right. Great. To share something personal with you guys, that it was during the pandemic when I started Long Live Cinema. The fear of I was suffering from cinephilia since 2018, but I thought of doing something, to fuel the curiosity of this thing that I have been obsessed about, in the form of a YouTube channel. So I started doing that, and then I always had this question in my head, and this is something that my parents still ask me, कि बेटा कौन देखेगा ये? Who is going to watch what you are doing? Be it a video essay, be it a podcast. Fine, you are making reels, sure, there might be some success, but who is going to watch it? तो ये जो कौन देखेगा, ये जो सवाल है, this has I have slowly learned, and I'm still learning how to deal with it, and how to not get rid of the excitement and that zeal of doing something. I want to ask you guys, since you have handled both sides, the art and commerce of cinema, so how do you balance this when you think of writing a new script? How much do you fixate on, fulfilling a vision and getting financially rewarded for your efforts? And does that also influence the decision of making a short film or a feature film?
uh, uh, I, I don't mind taking this. I think in the present state, there was a time when I was producing. and we were looking for content at that time, so I was on the other side. I would be very like I would be very probably slightly short-sighted about uh, content and I would always have a very idealistic point of view that filmmakers need to be given a space to express exactly what they want without any bearing on the audience. बनाने दो जो बनाना है क्योंकि if the film is good, the audience will come. Uh, I think what has happened over time is maybe my thinking itself has changed through all the experiences that I've had. That even if you have a good film, it's still your responsibility to bring in the audience. It is. It just is. And I think we're living in a world where uh, so much is happening in terms of consumption of content, attention spans, etc., etc. It's a whole different issue. But I think when each one of them and also, each little piece of content puts in that effort to get your attention. Films also need to do that. We have to have that responsibility. Otherwise, you will make a film for yourself, great, and nobody will watch it but you. So I honestly feel today, in today's changing media landscape, changing film landscape and TV landscape, and with the amount of content there is out there, I'm sorry, I'm using the word content. Uh, but with the amount of things to watch there is out there, I think it's quite likely that your likely audience in 2013 is never going to watch your stuff today unless you make the effort to make them watch because they have 50 other things that they which are equally good or better than your film. I'm sorry, all the directors who think their films are the best. Uh, that they have as choices in front of them, and more so after the pandemic because now we even have we have given up community viewing. थिएटर में फिल्म आई है उसको भी हम स्किप कर रहे हैं कि कल ओटीटी पे आ जाए. Uh, तो वो भी like even that medium is sort of slowly dissipating away from our behaviors. You know what I mean? Like we now know that we can stay at home. One of the OTTs will get this film very soon, and it's even when it comes on OTT, it's competing with like so many other films. So it's still likely that nobody's going to watch it. There's so many films we've all missed in the last years. As much as we've watched films, there's so many we haven't. Right? So it's just become a huge responsibility. And how that guides the writing is very subjective, right? How that guides the filmmaking is very subjective. That changes. Nobody understood how Animal became such a raging success. Uh, all it had was a star and a provocative theme, and I don't know if that is enough, but turns out it is. Like I didn't know if that was enough, but turns out it was. And of course, the film has its own reason for working on it. Not about that, but just the fact that uh, it, every film needs to every piece of content needs its own sort of design about how to make it accessible and call the audience in, which we can discuss separately. Uh, I just feel today is a responsibility of everyone.
I personally I know there are a lot of I have read some famous quotes of people and also people repeating things like I make the film that I want to see. I don't care about the audience. I
Denis Villeneuve said that.
I know, and I want to know the context of where it came from because it's not a new quote. I've been hearing it since बचपन से, so I know that it's been repeated by. And some people say it in ego. बोलते मैंने फिर अपने लिए बनाई किसी को पसंद नहीं आया तो मैं क्या करूँ? Like it's not, it's that. But I personally feel that if you are asking an audience for their time and money, there's a certain responsibility you have. You cannot turn around and say नहीं पसंद आया तो भाड़ में जाओ. I don't think I'm not saying that I'm making it keeping their what they're liking in mind because one can never know. Like I can never when I look at Indian television, for example, and the state of the shows that they're making, be it reality or be it fiction, I cannot even imagine like how does one make something, and if this is what's massy, I can never even replicate this kind of story in anything that I ever make. So I don't think I'll ever make something keeping this in mind that ये लोग तो ये देख रहे हैं तो मुझे तो इस तरह के डायलॉग डालने पड़ेंगे, इस तरह का ड्रामा, इस तरह का फ्लूट पीस डालना पड़ेगा उनके इमोशंस के लिए. But I at the same time cannot also negate the fact that yes, when I make something, I do want people to come and watch. It could be a niche audience, it could be a large number of people that could be depending on my ambition, my story, my style, or just my luck. But it is very important that otherwise why would I be making a film? The point
Correct.
is
And
that I want to make an exhibition of my art. And whatever we might say, I think all of us love validation. No, even the filmmaker who says that they have made a film for themselves, they really enjoy when, if nobody else, even if it's a colleague, a filmmaker whom they respect is coming and telling them what a lovely film you have made, it makes them feel very happy. If someone truly did not care, they would lock themselves up in an igloo somewhere and say that मैंने रिलीज कर लिया, अब मैं जा रहा हूँ थोड़े महीनों के लिए, बाद में बता देना क्या हुआ. So I don't, like he said, I don't think it'll reflect in our writing. When you're writing, it is a responsibility to be as truly committed and passionate to the story that we are telling, that we need to be I always say that before I can convince anybody about my story or my characters, I need to be convinced about them. If I make something with half conviction just for the heck of delivering it out there, it'll never be convincing for anyone. And things that work will keep changing. Nobody knows what works. I think good stories work. I
good
recently
stories
was
work.
yeah, I recently was telling Shaan about the fact that when Lagan was getting released, and I remember this childhood conversation where I was sitting with my mum and a group of her friends, and Mr. Satish Kaushik was part of that conversation, and he, as an insider, knew about Lagan. Like he knew ये कोई film आ रही है, and the initial thing with Lagan was a teaser. It was just a teaser of like Bhuvan, like Amir Khan standing, and the team just getting introduced. There was nothing else. There was just that music coming, and you just saw the team. So you didn't know what the film is about. You didn't know there's cricket. You didn't know anything. And initially, promos would get done through music. So the way you promote a film is you release the songs on radio, you release it on television and everything, and people get excited by the music. There was trailers were not so revealing as they are right now about the whole story. Like today, I know from beginning till end की film क्या है, and I'm just going to
Thank
watch
you.
the in
Thank
between,
you
like
for
the
saying
fill in the
that.
blank is.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's like you see a comedy film and all the punchlines I've already seen in the trailer, so I have to not decide whether I'm
Chalo,
going to laugh or
chalo,
not to
thank
laugh
God.
when I
I'm
watch it.
not the only one who thinks this.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, I
No, no,
think
it's correct.
it's a general, it's a pandemic right now. The trailer business in movie making. But having said that, Lagan ke time pe there was an intrigue, but nobody knew what the story was. I remember hearing it first time from Mr. Satish Kaushik's mouth, where he said हाँ कोई तो फिल्म बनाई है, ये आमिर ने पता नहीं क्या ये लगान आ रही है, कुछ तो क्रिकेट पर है. और पूरा क्लाइमैक्स भी सुना है, सब क्रिकेट पे बेस्ड है, पता नहीं क्या फिल्म है, क्रिकेट के ऊपर सब करके रखा है, चल गई तो चल गई, नहीं तो it was so tentative, like even amongst, it was an industry insider conversation. And I, like I said, as a child I have been so used to always playing around and everything around adults. I've always eavesdropped on these conversations, and I was like, and Amir Khan is always my favorite actor, so I'm like, Amir Khan ने film बनाई है, cricket पर है, क्या है, like what is this entire thing? But look at the way it worked and went to the Oscars, and nobody could predict it. And the reason I'm naming the film is that there is no formula. There is absolutely no formula about what can work. You make something, and in fact, Amir Khan has been one actor who has done very unformulaic films. He's done some formula films as well. His once in a while is Fana and his Gajni and whatever, whatever. But if you go to see the choices that he has made, from a Sarfarosh to a Lagan to Rang De Basanti to 1947 Earth, they are all films which are like so disparate in what was atypical of what was getting made. So yeah, but do respect your audience. Don't think that they
Yeah,
don't.
the only thing is, I think what also ends up happening is every story has an audience. Okay, it's not that that story will not. You have to make it for a sizable enough audience for you to make your money back. I feel. I just feel that, or make the film at a budget range where if it's a small niche audience, then make it at that budget range where your responsibility towards your partners is also, and towards everybody is fulfilled. Like you can at least get the film out in front of the very limited audience that you have. I feel that. And the other thing I just want to add to that is, like she was just saying about Lagan and all the various choices that Amir Khan has made, which so like different from their age, but still worked. It was means somebody took a punt on those kind of films. I think what ends up happening in our industry, also commercializing a film or the mainstreamizing of a film, is not something that you can define as a filmmaker. It's actually defined by the gatekeepers who are not really direct links to the audience, which means that suppose you've written a beautiful story, which potentially would work without you even commercializing it even one bit, right? Would just work. But there is 15,000 other hurdles you have to clear before you can actually get to make the film. Getting the right partners who are willing to back the story all the way without you making any compromises on that, right? So they decide that for you. They decide कि for this film to reach an audience, you need a star. Okay, fine, let's get a star. Maybe the star doesn't want it in this fashion, etc., etc. So you make changes to it. A producer says maybe you need to add a more powerful antagonist to it, so you change the script, etc. Probably doesn't remain what it was before. Eventually, it has become. Then it doesn't work. Now who's to blame for this? You commercialized it. Uh, what happened to that? So
एंडिंग चेंज कर दो.
हाँ एंडिंग चेंज कुछ भी करते हैं नहीं फिर 100% रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लो ना कि वो वर्क करेगी फिर नहीं करती तो फिर then you change how you think about films, if you are insisting on so many things to be changed. And I think the reason I mentioned this in the context of Amir Khan is that there are some people who just people blindly trust. If Amir is doing a film, we are not understanding this. How is this going to work? But if he's doing it, let's just go with it. In his case, he's had way more successes than failures. And we need more champions like that. Like, I just think that that's the right attitude towards films and cinema.
Yeah, his filmography is a very, very interesting one. Like if you see, he's done those Saap Sapera kind of films also at some point in time. But then he was also doing Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar, and then later on Tare Zameen Pe, Talash. You just and they're just so different in their tone. I really admire the fact that him attaching himself to a project could get these projects out, and I'm not saying that he's solely responsible for it, but for him to even recognize the potential in a film and for them to be there. So I think we also need more stars who take that risk and say that we are backing your story
This
unabashedly.
reminds me of something that you wrote in a post, Anukampa, that our job as filmmakers is to make the audience feel things. And the only way we can achieve that is by making films that feel right to us. And it is not, it is, the length and breadth of it will fall into place once the feeling does. Everything else is just speculation and jargon. Yeah, because this is something that I've also been thinking of key more than the length of the story, it is the depth that matters.
One of the discussions that we tend to have, and I agree with you, I'm sure that even I'm not sure if you have a friend circle or in your family somebody that you can jam with, and because you're very passionate about films,
I
I'm wondering
I
if you
I do have
do
friends,
have those.
but they mostly run away. But anyways, I yes, I can manage. Yes,
And now I understand the reason for a podcast. You need friends to talk to about cinema.
Even we
Yeah,
need
but
friends.
yeah, we're here for that. Yeah, but I've been lucky that growing up I've always had mom, and now there's an added person, so it's the three of us who are always talking. But there's one thing that I have a problem with, and I keep telling Shaan when I watch a film and it's technically it's brilliant, like it's smart, it's slick, it's something new the director has tried, but then I'm like, I didn't feel anything. Like I saw the film and it's admirable what's been achieved, and it's a high concept film or whatever. It could be anything. I'm not even
yeah.
naming names right now, but there are so many films that we have watched where he has also seen and he's like, huh, it was interesting or it was well made, and also, huh, well made and everything is fine, but nothing happened here. Like I've not felt anything. And I keep giving the example of Iron Claw for this very reason, that when I went to watch the film, it was about wrestling, and I my only connection with wrestling was I used to have trump cards as a kid. That's my only connection, and that's the only way I know the wrestlers. I didn't know anything about this family. I didn't know, but he was very keen on watching the film, and he went for the film, and I kept thinking about it. I kept thinking about it afterwards. There was something in me which I was like, okay, I can't get this film out. And there are so many films I watch, I forget about them. It could be very, very subjective, but you'll see a film and it was a nice experience, but एक हफ्ते
Yeah.
बाद पूछोगे तो याद नहीं रहता. So I keep feeling that whatever stories you say, just make something, because you're given a medium that's eternal. You're given a medium that if your film is well preserved, people 100 years later can watch it. So might as well do something good with it.
That's very true. That's very true. Uh, I'm just curious, what do you guys think about YouTube as a future of storytelling? Or can YouTube play some role in terms of shaping the future of stories being presented uh, more freely and without any constraints?
Isn't that already being done in a way? Like, I'm saying that even if a person is blogging their life in a way, that's a story, right? When you see families are putting a camera onto themselves, and like it's an uncensored display of, look at me with my child, look at me with my husband, that's also a story. Trailers, for example, which we are really bitching about right now a little while ago, which is your first preview into a story, that's also happening through YouTube. One of some of the best stories that I have discovered are music videos through YouTube. I'm a huge fan of well-made music videos, which are and by well-made I mean not just visually, but they are great stories that you see with the music, and that's something we are seeing through YouTube. So I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of short films also on YouTube. Some
I
wonderful.
think YouTube is the biggest platform anyway in the world. So most people in the world are consuming story. To answer your question, most people in the film are consuming some kind of storytelling through YouTube. I think, to be very specific to what you're asking, is it serialized
Yeah, so
fiction,
my
well
context was that
produced?
in your previous conversations about Natkhat, you had mentioned that maybe YouTube was, putting you on YouTube was not one of your, primary choices, because that's like, okay, the easiest thing to do. But even if it reaches 1 million people, that will not be enough. So we need that, an intervention or help from an OTT platform like JioCinema or any other platform. So I was just curious that can filmmakers like you rely on YouTube to reach more people, or do you have to, you know, take that OTT route or of course, the theatrical route?
No, we have to take the OTT route, even though YouTube is our biggest audience. So because it's free and I can reach to everybody in the world. And if it becomes a viral hit of some sort, then you get all the more, like without you doing anything about it, you get a lot more. But I guess it's the structures that bind us in the business, the financial responsibilities of films, etc., etc., for which we haven't been able to crack a model like that. So it has to go to an exclusive, like, so when you're on an OTT or you're catering to an exclusive client and in a way, customer base in a way, which उसका काम OTT ने करा हुआ है जमा करने का. That's what you're watching, right? And we will probably reach a point where some kind of model might get cracked, where maybe it's not YouTube, but a platform like that, which uh, which adequately compensates the filmmaker as well as adequately gives enough access to the audience as well. You know, like I think what has happened over the past few years is people have started getting comfortable paying for content. uh, they were always comfortable paying for a theatrical experience. And but slowly now it is like so many people who unexpectedly have all OTTs access. They're paying that annual fees and all of that. It's not because of standards of living. It's not because of that. It's because of changes in behavioral patterns of people. So at some point, possibly in the future, we might experience a change in behavioral pattern where uh, a content as vast as like a content platform as vast as YouTube will have buyers for content as well, which will adequately sort of serve into like compensating filmmakers. It will happen, I feel.
Yeah, I think right now YouTube is a great platform to generate popularity in terms of the number of people that you can reach out to, but not the revenue system to compensate on the scale on which films are getting made right now.
Uh,
So if
They
you're
can
making
just
something,
less well
yeah,
produced.
yeah, maybe yeah, even if they are like something with a smaller budget, and by well produced he means the money and not so much the
Skill.
craft of
Yeah.
producing. For example, TVF got popularity through YouTube. I got introduced to TVF through that, and I
Exactly.
was watching all their earlier videos and their earlier skits and even the earlier series that they were making on YouTube. And they became this huge company from there. And I think maybe on the level on which they were working, YouTube did work as a platform, but they did need their sponsors and people to endorse them. They would have product placement for that very reason, because they needed someone to back the kind of content that they were making to make up for the funds that they were putting into making those skits and
Correct.
series. So film was a different level altogether. That multi-crore projects, for that to get compensated through YouTube views is not something that at this stage is something
Okay,
that's
got
viable.
it. Since you were during the release and after the release of Fairy Folk, you have been very vocal about what actually goes behind the scenes when you are making a film. So, in context to that, I wanted to ask you guys, ki, what are some of the obstacles or some of the challenges that you are facing right now as storytellers? What are some of the things that you wish to highlight that you think that needs to be changed in the industry? Do you have any expectations?
For me personally, I feel that we as a group of filmmakers are sitting here in the city of Bombay, and I'm being very specific to the Hindi industry right now, the Bombay industry, not even just Hindi. I'm saying whether it's English, Hindi, whatever language is coming out of the city, I'm just saying Bombay. We as a bunch of filmmakers are sitting in this city, and we're trying to create cinema or films or stories or series, whatever it is, which can reach pan India. Okay, which can if it can cross the borders, then great. But I'm saying at least within India, we wanted to reach every part of the country. But we are living in a cocoon where we are not aware of the stories of India. So one of the challenges that we face is I feel not, and I'm speaking not for myself alone, but even for the friends that we speak with and are in conversation with, and we hear them as storytellers and filmmakers, that when you're going out there to find the right collaborators, to find the right buyers and funders and producers or whatever it is, or champions within platforms, they might see a character or a story and be like aisa nahi hota hai, or they will not understand the language of it or the world of it, because they have not seen a world outside of Bombay or outside of urban India or outside of the anglicized world, like the English Western world. So then how do you expect what you're making to reach into the furthest corners of the country if you, for example, patriarchy, right? There is of course a very woke culture, and it's great where you're thinking, no, there's as as a woman you're very liberated, and now you're going to smash patriarchy, and those are the stories you want to tell. But I think Vidya had said this very lovely thing in one of the interviews during Natkhat, that what you do with patriarchy and how you rebel against it can mean very different things to different people. For someone, it could be wearing a bikini and having the abandon of walking on Jew Beach. But for some women in some far off village in whichever part of India, maybe the way she is fighting patriarchy is simply by lifting her ghungat from here to here, and that's it. Which is what also happens in Natkhat in the end, right? He just removes her, ghungat, which is symbolic. It's just a little gesture. She's not going to suddenly start wearing like jeans and pants in the house and say, "Hey, I'm not cooking tonight." Order like that. That's not what you're going to be doing. And sit with a cigarette and
Yes, can you do that
like,
again, please?
batao,
Just
like
just for the audience.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, a bottle of wine in hand. That's not every rebellion has to look the same. But if you take a story of a woman who is trying to fight patriarchy in her own silent ways, in this way, it may not be understood by everybody over here, because they have not had that experience of, like, they may not understand what arranged marriage feels like. And the fact that there are many girls even today and in cities who are willing to get married through an arranged marriage system, and it's not even considered wrong. It's not like for a girl who doesn't want to get married at all in her life and doesn't want to have kids at all, for another character who is aspiring to get married to a boy chosen by her parents and have kids and be okay with cooking and running the house. It's not backward, and it's not that this is her experience, this is her culture, this is her upbringing. What do you do within that system? And you still try to understand her challenges. And I think that's the kind of problem that is getting faced. So a lot of stuff that comes out today, we can't relate to it sometimes, when you watch it as an audience also, because we as makers also are an audience for most of the day when we're sitting and we're watching something, and you feel that I don't know who these characters are or what this world is. And it's not like I don't want to know different characters and different worlds, but it's such an alien lens that it's you're not gone into the depths of it. And I think somewhere it requires everybody in this industry. I think it's a responsibility to perhaps travel more, speak to more people. If you feel that you cannot go somewhere, grab your security guard. He has definitely come from some far off village and he has stories to tell. Talk to your Uber driver, talk to your rickshaw wala, talk to your bhaji wala. Like I really hope I'm not saying some slur which is not meant to be said, because I read a list recently where you said you cannot use some terms to describe people, and I'm not being disrespectful at all. I'm just
I'm just
professionally saying
checking
that.
as well. That's fine.
Yeah. But it's you talk to people. The conversation cannot happen in this very cocoon way and say, okay, we are storytellers of the world and we are going to, let India
Yeah, I
see that.
think I think my worry is, or expectation or whatever is, I think we're just making we are all serving an algorithm of some sort right now, like even in terms of the content that's being made. I think everybody just needs to remember that some of the best stuff. Let me put it differently. There is stuff that there are films that have longevity and shelf life that will sort of transcend all time and stay evergreen for eternity. And then there is the algorithmic films, which work, will serve your limited attention span, and then just leave your consciousness. And I feel, I think what a lot of work that happens nowadays in the business, and rightfully so, I'm not judging it because this is also a business and has to pay the bills and put food on people's tables. Uh, I just feel that I envision a world in which simultaneously we can make films that simultaneously transcend these barriers of art and commerce. There is walls between art and commerce, and we can just transcend that. Because right now, I feel this, at least the Hindi film industry, and with the emergence of platforms, etc., even non-platform stuff is being sort of, it's like seeping into non-platform filmmaking as well. This algorithmic sort of an algorithm guiding decisions. And uh, the legacy films never did that. They never went for that. They just went like, if we made films like that, maybe lots of great films would have never gotten made. It's just important to constantly remember that and have a right balance. And then, of course, there are filmmakers in both worlds, and they will then, this is the utopian ideal, which is they will both find a way to coexist in the same space because the audience is unlimited.
I mean, that's why we have a Citizen Kane and Mughal Azam. So yeah, that.
Correct.
In fact, mom would tell me this story about Mughal Azam, about how K. Asif, right, who made the film, and she had told me, and मुझे properly वो story याद नहीं है, but he like his clothes, were not in the best state, and his like जूता और चप्पल or whatever was like torn and everything, like उसमें छेद होगा या खुला होगा. But when he would go to pitch his film and he would be like, अनारकली ये सोने का ये पहनेगी and मेरा शीश महल ऐसा बनेगा, and you look at a person who's not like today, if you go to see and people are pitching their stuff now, they are like immaculate and in their best of wear, and they're like from top to toe, they're groomed and everything, but the story or their conviction may not be as well groomed. Because a lot of people, and you see them, they have this amazing lingo for pitching the vision of the film in terms of the look. And now you can make very cool decks, and you can source so many visuals from the web. You now even have AI, so you know exactly like what you will do look wise for with your film and everything, but not like feel wise. You don't know who your characters are, you don't know what their backstories are. And I think that's the difference between a K Asif and the people who are making films. Or when Mother India got made, initially it was Aurat, and then Aurat was remade and repackaged with one common thread, which is I think Kanhaiya Lal, if I'm not mistaken. And he's the only the mukhiya or whoever. He's the only common person, the common actor. It's the same story, but you have that conviction in your story that you have made it once here and made it once there. But I just want to add, if one thing needs to be changed for things to get fixed, it's getting rid of the word viral. Growing up and even today, viral was meant to be a very bad thing. Viral हुआ है, डॉक्टर के पास जाओ, तुम दवाई लेकर आओ. वायरल हुआ, पैंडेमिक हो गया, दुनिया में वायरस फैला, दुनिया बंद हो गई. पर तुम्हारा तुम जो भी बनाते हो उसको वायरल होना चाहिए. अरे वायरल हो गया, एंड बिकॉज वायरल्स आर नॉट मेंट टू लास्ट फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. द पॉइंट ऑफ समथिंग बीइंग वायरल इज, तुमको अगर फ्लू भी होगा वो 5 दिन का फ्लू होगा. So if you make something that goes viral, how long will it last? I think that's why none of those films that are coming out. I mean, I'm not saying it's a very generic thing that I'm saying, but most of what's coming out is so short-lived because they're meant to go viral, and वो कुछ दिन के लिए trend करेंगे, and then you'll forget about them. So I really wish makers went beyond getting viral and try to get your immune system a little better and went for something more robust.
But on the other hand, I also think that maybe a few years later, you'll ask us the same question. And uh, like, I feel that everything is adapting all the time. Everything is changing all the time. And today, like cinema is also just very young. It's not something that has been going on forever. So this entire thing of initially 2 hours of 2 hours is the maxim, right? Like everybody stick to 2 hours and that's a film. We call it that. Right? And with now attention spans have really sort of started reducing drastically. And cinema is meant to be this medium. It's a medium that we speak about, right? Now, tomorrow, what's probably going to happen is we're going to have a new medium, completely new medium, sort of take center stage. Like we had, until now, we've been adapting sitcoms, which is 20 minutes into 10 episodes, whatever. That's one form. There is the longer form, is the HBO shows, which became 45 minutes into 8 episodes, whatever. Then there's a 2 hour film. We're going to probably soon have 5 minute content, etc., which I predict is going to make a lot of money, and I predict is going to be very, very successful. And we filmmakers will be scoffing at it, and we will be uh, bitching and whining about it for a long time until we actually end up making it. So, and we do cool things with it. I'm saying we just we just do really fun stuff with it and innovate there. So I feel as the world changes, these things will keep changing, and it's about how much you want to adapt and how much you want to fight. Because at the end of the day, with no judgment attached to any of the mediums, it's all storytelling, right? We're just changing the form of storytelling. Yeah, and like I just read something somewhere, which is a very beautiful line somebody has written that reading, for example, reading is the only form of content consumption where you are never interrupted.
That's true.
I thought was such a
That's
cool
true. That's
line.
true. That's very true. How do you guys navigate being, a couple and creative collaborators, or should I say co-creators, as Shaan likes to call, Anukampa? That's what I've researched. But how do you
Yeah.
guys navigate this relationship? Because do you often have like, creative not feuds, but like how do you
No, worse
okay.
than
I
battles, wars.
Okay. I think I should let you
Yeah, we have
I should
was.
let you guys do the talking. You've understood my question, but yeah.
Yeah,
Cabs, you want to take it?
I think what happens now with the couple is that there is no filter. Anywhere else, say if you and I are working for the first time together, there'll still be a little filter and a professional boundary, and we will know that if there's disagreement, you cannot say something beyond, and you cannot perhaps raise your voice beyond or argue beyond a point, and you'll have to bite your tongue or take a step back. When you're a couple, then you can have an argument even at night. Once you've entered the house, it can continue. There's, I mean, we can say goodbye to each other once there's pack up, and then we will take forward our disagreement the next day. We can bring our disagreements to the house also, and I'm not sure how the other couples who are working together might function, but we realize at some point in time that it might just be a little healthier to navigate these disagreements in a slightly more agreeable way. And
Yeah.
um, uh, see, sometimes it's very very joyful, because to have someone that you can see eye to eye with, and you know that the things that you're collaborating and vibing on and are in sync with are not just about what you're doing right now. It can be something as simple as we're watching something else unrelated to what we are working on, and suddenly we turn to each other like, hey, this is a beat from what we are writing. This is like so similar, and you connect on that, which you can't expect with
Right.
anybody else, because you're not sharing your life with someone else. So I think there are moments when it's extremely joyful, but because of the familiarity and intimacy, it can also become a challenge to handle those moments where you feel you can take the liberty of expressing your disagreement in stronger ways than you would with a stranger. But currently, we both have been working on different projects, and what he's looking from me at this point in time is feedback, which I'm damn slow at, and I've just taken it for granted a little bit. But he's been writing something, and but I do feel very valued in when I give my feedback. I know that it's really, and I think it's mutual. Like when I write something, it's a story. It's one of the first persons that you're sharing with, right? In the house, you have the little narration, and you're looking for that first set of validation from there, that what you're imagining is correct, or what you can improve on. You're getting that first feedback from here. So I think that's what it was a
Yeah,
very
it's very
active
essential.
process. Yeah.
It's very essential to get conviction from somebody who you trust, right? On whatever you're writing. Get belief and conviction in your work from someone you trust. And, that's the first audience for anything, for everyone, right? Like if it's always so the way we navigate working together is just to sort of think about that more than everything else. Just knowing that when it works, it's very beautiful, and it's better to sort of write or collaborate on whatever we're writing on with somebody who knows you so intimately that uh, it just they understand exactly where you're coming from, rather than actually going out there and having to explain yourself in complicated ways. So that emotional shorthand that you have is very rewarding.
Our relationship began through discussions of cinema, actually. That's how we began. So we began by speaking about films that we like, by giving film recommendations to each other. One of the first things he did is he shared two scripts of some shots that he had written. I instantly gave him some validation, and I think that just endeared me to him. And we discussed about our, aim and the vision of our production companies in terms of the kind of cinema that we want to make. And so it was not like we first met and we spoke about other things and then realized. It was first we spoke about films and cinema, and we realized how much in sync we were with each other in terms of the kind of stuff that we like. And I think we decided to get married so we never have to find friends to talk about films with. We know that we can bore each
Right.
other.
No, so there is
We
this
can.
thing like I'm not sure if this is a reality or anything like that, but I've often heard people saying that, one should not be with someone for life. You should try to be with someone who is from a different field. Like if let's say you are an engineer, then the other person should be a doctor. But then you both are working in the same domain, and you both have collaborated on multiple projects together. So I just wanted to, understand ki how do you navigate through those discussions, those creative arguments, those ideas कि नहीं मेरा आइडिया अच्छा है अच्छा नहीं मेरा अच्छा है और how do you come to that middle ground. So I just wanted to understand कि how as a creative collaborator team how do you work, so that is there.
See, if it's been a bad idea for us to get married, it's too late now. We'll have to see. But if
It's
you are
just not.
asking if you can take that punt with someone, if there is a film lover that you can be with, then my answer is yes, you can. You'll have to. It's possible, and
Better to
I
be
can
with a
share
film
about.
lover than not a film lover. Right.
I can share about our writing experience. Like we wrote an entire series during lockdown, and the series was commissioned to us, and we created the whole thing from a log line. We made it like from scratch. We had a reference of something that they had bought rights to, but what we made, the world, the characters were completely our own. And what our entire process in that was, for example, eventually we wrote about 9 episodes, almost an hour long each. So that's like 9 hours of content, as one says. But if I have written the first draft of the episode, we discussed the story, we have gone through the entire thing. If you wrote the Bible, he wrote the first draft, for example, then it's come to me, then I write it, then it goes back to him. We're not constantly sitting in front of each other and writing together. That's not our process. We can discuss and ideate and put all our ideas in one place so we know exactly what the structure is. But then we can take that away. Like the first episode of it, I remember was a very stream of consciousness writing for me. We knew what the character was and everything, but then I just sat on my laptop and I just like typed away, and suddenly we had the entire episode in front of us. And I sent him that draft. Then he would edit that and add his own things and do his own thing, then send that back to me. And then if we had to discuss some things like what's working and not working, then we would have those discussions or arguments and come to a solution. The second episode, I remember he did the first draft and then it came to me. So our process is more like we do give each other time to spend alone with the material. It's not like it's you, me, and the material together all the time. You take the material with you. You do one thing in isolation and everything, and if it's a bad idea, like sometimes I might have an idea which could be stupid, and he will be like he'll make me see, you know, give his perspective and understand that okay, this is not working, or he might do something and I'm like kya yaar, and whatever. We might just discuss that, but we at least take that chance of having done it once, and then
Yeah.
then come together.
Also, we know each other intimately, right? So sometimes it's just that okay, there are films or ideas or projects or whatever where I know I want to work with her on this, and then there is some that I just know I want to do myself. Same with her. She knows exactly that some stuff that she's writing, etc. She wants to do it and bring me in at a later stage, or I'll bring her in at a later stage, something. They're still figuring it out.
Yeah, but the biggest thing is at least you know that the taste matches. You know, like that's one thing with my mother also that I feel so blessed about, that I know the taste matches. So if we are going to watch, like even during Mami, when you're watching 20 plus films, like I think this time we saw 23, 24. She broke the record. She saw maximum number of films. We know that okay, we may not always agree on the films that we like. There might be some that he has liked more than I have liked, or she might have liked something. But ultimately, when we're discussing cinema, we're coming from that common place of like deep passion about it. It's and we're seeing it from that lens, and I think that makes a huge difference. Even because your ideas and your stories now, they're like your babies. You don't want to give it in anyone's hand, especially in that newborn stage. You know how when you're giving a child to someone, you're like थोड़ा गर्दन संभालना, थोड़ा प्यार से पकड़ना, थोड़ा उसको वो मत करना, नजर ना लगे. and you're covering it up. You know that this is the first stage of my idea before it's getting made, and I'm giving it to you, and I know you would hold it properly.
Great, awesome. So, the very last question of this conversation, because we are running short of time, I guess. So, I just wanted to understand from you guys that who are the filmmakers that you look up to. They can be like, of course, Indians and outside India. Who are the filmmakers that have inspired you to, get into, be a part with cinema itself?
Camps, why don't you go first?
My one childhood love, which has not changed over the years, and almost like I feel like I just love him too much, and that's Steven Spielberg. So when I was a kid, one of the first filmmakers whose name I could quote and I could like say, and even today when I watch his films, I'm in awe of the man, and perhaps one of the reasons why I really admire him is as a filmmaker. If you look at his filmography, there's a huge like, even though it's a Steven Spielberg film, there are some films that you will see and you'll compare with the other, and you can see they're so different from each other. Like there's a man who can do something like a Jurassic Park, and then he can make something like a Terminal, like which is so intimate, and this is this man's story, and it's within the and he has this amazing way of, I think, tapping into the audience and knowing how to get their attention and keeping them hooked emotionally as well. Like I had not seen Jaws for some reason through my childhood. I mean, of course, E.T., everything else. I saw Jaws quite recently. I think last year we saw it, and it was like, when that first time when he types saying shark attack, and into the typewriter or whatever. I'm like, how does a man think of creating drama through such a simple tool? He really understands the audiovisual medium. So even though there are so many films and filmmakers whom I hugely admire, and there are so many films that I'm a huge fan of. Like I've very vocally said that Jaagte Raho has been my childhood favorite, and it has not changed. But there are very few filmmakers who are able to show the versatility that Mr. Spielberg has shown. And in India, even though it's been slightly smaller filmography in terms of it's so sporadic and far between his work. I think the other filmmaker who's shown that kind of diversity has been Shikhar Kapoor, where you cannot imagine that the person who's made Mr. India has also made a Bandit Queen and has made a Masoom. They're so different, and I think I aspire as a filmmaker to be able to tell stories which are like, oh, she could make this, and then this is so different, and uh, I think that's why as an actor also you want that kind of versatility.
And I mean, there's so many, man. I can't even, off the top of my head, it's like Kurosawa, Kubrick, Kieslowski, the three Ks. Uh, and I really love this Taiwanese filmmaker called Edward Yang. I'm pretty sure everybody started discovering him now. He's made Yi and Terrorizers and a lot of them thanks to the movie. But all his work, especially there's a 4 hour film he's made called A Brighter Summer Day. People need to watch that film. It's one of the best films about adolescence and growing up and politics and all of that. Uh, yeah, there's too many to name. Just and there's too many that I'm yet to discover. Some of the biggest names. I'm actually very young. Like I'm a noob when it comes to cinema. Literally, I'm being honest. Uh, so there's so many that like I've not seen. I've seen one film of Ozu. I feel ashamed saying that, but I really want to see all of his work. So and from the modern masters, of course, Scorsese and Denis Villeneuve. Uh, they literally modern masters. I must say that, especially Denny, because he's young and he's got another 10 films ahead of him, I guess, more than 10. There's the filmmaker called Pablo Larraín that came out of Chilean filmmaker who I used to I used to always compare him with Denny. He's also really prolific and making some really good films. Among the Indian filmmakers, I think uh, I really actually love I love I just saw 12th Fail, and I think I really like Viduvin Chopra's work. It's very underrated as a filmmaker. People, I mean, he's made Parinda, and but people don't really talk about how good a filmmaker he is. They speak about how successful a producer he is. Uh, and I love Ramu's earlier work, uh, as does everyone, I guess. Yeah, those are. Yeah, I mean, in today's, there's a lot of great young filmmakers actually working today. Kanu Ben has made some very nice films. I like Amit Masudkar, Kanu. All these guys are very consistently making good films. So, yeah.
Of course, Anurag.
And Anurag is, of course, he's given so much to the industry, not just in terms of the number of films, but even the number of people he's given.